Captain Lee Dong-min stood on the observation deck of Orbital Station 1, watching the morning sun rise over New Seoul. The planet below looked like a green and blue jewel against the black of space. White clouds moved slowly across the surface, and he could see the lights of the main city even from this height. New Seoul was home to over 2 million people now. It had taken 3 generations to build this world into something beautiful. The first settlers had worked hard to change the atmosphere and plant earth trees and flowers. Now children ran through parks filled with cherry blossoms and played in streams that ran clear and cold. Lee had been born on this world. His parents came here when he was just 2 years old. He grew up watching the colony grow from a few metal buildings to a real city with schools and hospitals and shopping centers. Now he was 35 and commanded the defense station that protected his home. Down on the planet, Dr. Park Hyejin was starting her day in the research center. She studied alien plants and animals that the survey teams found on distant worlds. Her lab was filled with strange flowers that glowed in the dark and small creatures that could change color like chameleons. She loved her work because every day brought something new to learn about. Park had moved to New Seoul 5 years ago from Earth. She missed her family back home, but this planet felt like home now too. The research here was important. They were learning things that could help all of humanity understand the galaxy better. In the residential district, Kim Tae-ho was getting ready for school. The 12-year-old boy pulled on his uniform and grabbed his book bag. His father, Commander Kim Woo-jin, was already at the spaceport preparing for a supply run to the outer colonies. Tae-ho wanted to be a pilot just like his father when he grew up. "Study hard today," his mother said as she packed his lunch. "Your father will be home tomorrow night." Tae-ho nodded and ran to catch the transport to school. He loved living on New Seoul. The sky was always blue during the day, and at night you could see more stars than anywhere else. His teacher said that each star might have planets with people living on them, just like New Seoul. At the elementary school in Sector 7, 10-year-old Choi Minji was already in the science lab. She came early every day to help Dr. Park with the plant samples. Minji was smart for her age and loved learning about aliens and other worlds. "Good morning, Dr. Park," Minji said as she carefully watered the glowing flowers. "Good morning, Minji. Did you finish reading about the crystal formations we found last week?" "Yes. They grow in patterns like music. I want to visit the planet where they came from someday." Park smiled. The girl reminded her of herself at that age, always curious about everything. "Maybe you will. We need more explorers to find new worlds." The morning was peaceful and normal. People went to work and children went to school. Farmers tended their crops in the big domes outside the city. Engineers maintained the machines that kept the air clean and the water pure. Everyone had a job to do, and everyone felt safe. But high above the planet, something appeared on the edge of the star system. Lieutenant Song Yeji was on duty at the sensor station when the first readings came in. She stared at her screen and ran the scan again. Then she called Captain Lee. "Sir, we have multiple contacts at the system boundary." "They're big, sir? Bigger than anything we've seen before." Lee hurried to the command center. The main screen showed 5 massive shapes moving slowly toward the inner system. They were clearly ships, but not human ships. The design was wrong. Too angular, too sharp. "How long until they reach us?" Lee asked. "At current speed, about 18 hours, sir." Lee felt his stomach tighten. In all the years since humans had started traveling to other stars, they had never met another intelligent species. They had found ruins on dead worlds and strange artifacts, but never living aliens. "Send a message to Earth Command," Lee ordered. "Full priority. And wake up, Dr. Park. We need someone who knows about alien life." The word spread quickly through the colony. By afternoon, everyone knew that alien ships were coming. Some people were excited. Others were scared. Most were simply curious. What would the aliens look like? What did they want? Dr. Park worked with the communication team to prepare first contact protocols. They had practiced this many times, but it had always been just practice. Now it was real. "We need to be careful," she told the team. "We don't know how they think, or what they consider polite. We should start with simple mathematical concepts. Numbers are universal." Commander Kim returned early from his supply run. He wanted to be with his family if something important was about to happen. Tae-ho was full of questions about the aliens. "Do you think they're friendly, Dad?" "I hope so, son." Most people are good, if you treat them right. Maybe aliens are the same way. But as the hours passed, more ships appeared on the sensors. Not 5, but 50, then 100. They formed into organized groups that looked very much like a military fleet. Captain Lee called a meeting with all the senior staff. The colony's governor was there, along with the heads of security, engineering, and research. The fleet is now within 6 hours of the planet, Lee reported. We've tried to send them messages on every frequency we know. They haven't responded to anything. Maybe they just don't understand our technology, suggested the governor. Or maybe they don't want to talk, said Security Chief Bang Moon-ho. That's a lot of ships for a peaceful visit. Dr. Park had been studying the sensor readings all day. The ships are made of some kind of crystal or ceramic material. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. These people are far more advanced than us. As night fell over New Sol, the alien fleet moved into orbit around the planet. The ships were enormous, each one several kilometers long. They hung in space like dark clouds blocking out the stars. Then finally a message came. It was not in any human language, but the computer was able to break down the basic structure. The message was short and simple. Lesser species. You occupy sacred hunting grounds. Submit or be cleansed. You have 72 hours. The command center fell silent. Dr. Park felt her blood turn cold. These were not friendly explorers looking to make friends with humanity. These were conquerors. Captain Lee looked around the room at his officers. They were all young, born on this peaceful world. None of them had ever fought in a real war. But they were human, and humans did not give up easily. Send a reply, Lee said quietly. Tell them we want to talk. Tell them we're willing to negotiate. The response came back in minutes. No negotiation. Submit or die. 71 hours remain. Outside, people gathered in the streets to look up at the alien ships. Parents held their children close. Some families started packing, hoping to get on evacuation ships. Others refused to leave their homes. In the research center, Dr. Park worked frantically to learn anything she could about the aliens. Their ships, their technology, their culture. Anything that might help save her new home. Kim Tae-ho stood on his apartment balcony with his father, looking up at the dark shapes in the sky. Are they going to hurt us, Dad? Commander Kim put his arm around his son's shoulders. I don't know, Tae-ho, but whatever happens, we'll face it together. The countdown had begun. 71 hours until the aliens would make good on their threat. Captain Lee knew that New Sol's small defense force could never fight off such a massive fleet, but maybe somehow they could find another way. Kus, colony that had been built with hope and dreams, now faced its greatest test. And somewhere in the dark ships above, alien minds were already planning the destruction of everything the humans had built. Dr. Park Hye-jin had not slept in 36 hours. Her eyes burned as she stared at the computer screen, trying to understand the alien language patterns. The coffee in her cup had gone cold hours ago, but she kept drinking it anyway. Professor Namjasu worked beside her, running translation programs and cultural analysis software. They had managed to decode more of the alien messages, and what they found made Park's stomach sick. They call themselves the Vorthak, Nam said quietly. Their society is built around something they call cosmic purity. They believe that lesser species contaminate the universe just by existing. Park rubbed her tired eyes. So they're not just conquering us, they want to completely wipe us out. It gets worse. According to their broadcasts to each other, they've done this before, many times. They talk about the cleansing of the crystal, singers, and the purification of the gas dwellers. We're not their first victims. On the main screen, they could see the Vorthak ships moving into attack positions. The aliens had not responded to any more attempts at communication. The 72-hour deadline was now down to 12 hours. Captain Lee stood in the evacuation control center, watching the chaos. Thousands of people were trying to get on the transport ships that would take them to safety. But there were not enough ships for everyone. How many can we get out? He asked Lieutenant Song. Maybe 200,000 if we pack them in tight, she answered. But that still leaves almost 2 million people on the planet. Lee felt sick. He was supposed to protect these people, but his small defense force was useless against the massive alien fleet. The orbital defense platforms had weapons that could destroy small asteroids, but they would barely scratch the alien ships. In the residential district, families were making terrible choices. Commander Kim had secured a spot on an evacuation ship for his wife and son, but there was no room for him. "I have to stay," he told his wife. "The evacuation ships need military escorts. If the aliens attack during the evacuation, someone has to protect the transports." His wife Sun-hee held back tears. "Come with us, please. I can't abandon my duty. Take care of Taiho. Get him to Earth safely." 12-year-old Taiho listened to his parents talk. He understood what was happening. His father was staying behind to help other people escape, even though it meant he might die. "I want to stay with you, Dad," Taiho said. Commander Kim knelt down and put his hands on his son's shoulders. "Your job is to take care of your mother, and someday, when you're grown up, your job will be to remember what happened here. Can you do that for me?" Taiho nodded, fighting back tears. "I'll remember everything." At the elementary school, teachers were helping children get to the evacuation center, but 10-year-old Choi Minji had gone to the research lab instead. She wanted to help Dr. Park save the alien plant samples. "We can't take them all," Park told the little girl. "The evacuation ships don't have room for research materials." "But they're important," Minji said. "You said they might help us understand how life works on other planets." Park looked at the girl's serious face. Even now, facing death, Minji was thinking about science and discovery. "You're right. Help me pick the most important ones." They worked together to pack the most valuable specimens into portable containers. Park thought about how the girl reminded her of herself at that age. She hoped Minji would live to become a scientist. Engineer Yoon Sung-ho was in the defense control room, running final checks on the orbital weapons. Something was wrong with the targeting systems. The computers kept showing error messages that made no sense. "Sir," he called to Captain Lee, "I think someone has been messing with our defense grid. The control codes have been changed." Lee hurried over to look at the displays. "How is that possible? Our systems aren't connected to outside networks. The aliens must have hacked us somehow. Their technology is way ahead of ours. They've been inside our computers for hours, maybe days." Lee felt his heart sink. Without the defense platforms, they had no way to protect the evacuation ships. The aliens could destroy the transports as soon as they left the planet. Medical Officer Han Ji-yeon was at the main hospital, helping to load critical patients onto medical evacuation ships. The hospital was in chaos, as doctors tried to decide who could be moved and who was too sick to travel. An old man grabbed her arm as she passed his bed. "Doctor, are we all going to die?" Han looked into his frightened eyes. She wanted to lie, to give him comfort, but she had always been honest with her patients. "I don't know, but we're doing everything we can to save as many people as possible." With 8 hours left until the deadline, the alien fleet suddenly moved. Instead of waiting, they began their attack early. The first target was the orbital defense station where Captain Lee commanded his small force. Beams of energy that looked like liquid fire struck the station's shields. The shields held for 30 seconds, then collapsed. "All hands, abandon station," Lee ordered. But before most of his crew could reach the escape pods, another energy beam cut through the station's main hull. Lee stayed at his command post, sending tactical data about the alien weapons to the evacuation fleet below. His fingers flew over the keyboard as explosions shook the station around him. "Captain, we have to go," Lieutenant Song yelled. "Almost finished," Lee said. He uploaded everything they had learned about the Vorthak ships and weapons. If humanity survived this attack, they would need this information. The station exploded just as Lee sent the final data packet. He and his crew died knowing they had given humanity's survivors the best chance they could. On the planet below, people looked up to see their protectors dying in space. Then the alien assault ships began entering the atmosphere. The Vorthak ships were beautiful in a terrible way. They looked like they were carved from black crystal, with sharp edges that caught the light. But their beauty made them even more frightening. Commander Kim was at the spaceport, helping load the last evacuation ship when the first assault craft landed. The aliens that came out were unlike anything humans had imagined. They stood 3 meters tall on 4 legs like a mantis. Their bodies seemed to be made of the same black crystal as their ships. They had no faces that humans could recognize, just smooth surfaces that reflected light like mirrors. The Vorthak moved with terrible purpose. They carried weapons that fired beams of energy, but they also used claws and cutting tools. They seemed to prefer killing humans up close rather than from a distance. The first target was the elementary school in Sector 7. Choi Minji was still in the research lab with Dr. Park when the building shook. Through the window, they could see black shapes moving through the school hallways. "Hide," Park whispered. She pushed Minji into a storage closet. "Don't make any sound no matter what you hear." Park tried to run toward the main lab to destroy sensitive research data, but a Vorthak warrior was already there. The alien turned its mirror-smooth head toward her. Park had studied alien life for years, but she had never imagined anything like this. The creature was beautiful and horrible at the same time. She could see her own terrified reflection in its face. The alien raised its weapon and fired. In his hiding place, Minji heard Dr. Park scream, then silence. She pressed her hands over her mouth to keep from crying out. Through a crack in the closet door, she could see the alien searching the lab, destroying everything it found. At Taiho's school, the attack was even worse. The Vorthak had surrounded the building before the children could escape. They moved through the hallways systematically, checking every classroom. Taiho was in the gymnasium with 50 other students when the aliens found them. The children huddled together in the center of the room while their teacher tried to protect them. "Please," the teacher begged. "They're just children. They haven't hurt anyone." The Vorthak warriors did not respond. They did not seem to understand human speech, or they simply did not care. They raised their weapons. Taiho closed his eyes and thought about his father. He tried to be brave like Commander Kim had taught him. When the energy beams fired, he held on to the memory of his father's strong hands and kind voice. Across the colony, the slaughter continued. The aliens seemed to take special pleasure in killing the young and helpless. They destroyed hospitals and schools first, then moved on to homes and businesses. Medical officer Han Ji-yeon was trying to evacuate patients from the children's hospital when the aliens found her. She threw herself in front of a group of sick children, trying to shield them with her body. "Run!" she screamed to the few staff members who were still alive. "Save who you can!" The aliens cut her down, then continued their methodical killing of everyone in the building. Commander Kim fought to the end at the spaceport. He and a small group of security officers held off the aliens long enough for one last evacuation ship to escape. As his ammunition ran out, Kim thought about his son and hoped the boy would remember him. In the research center, Minji waited in the dark closet for hours after the aliens left. When she finally came out, the building was silent. Dr. Park was dead. All the beautiful alien plants had been destroyed. Minji was alone. She made her way through the ruined colony, hiding whenever she heard the sound of alien ships. Bodies lay everywhere. The streets were covered with the ashes of burned buildings. The spaceport. She found a few other survivors hiding in the wreckage. An old man named Lee Sang. 6 months after the fall of New Seoul, Earth was a world in mourning. Black flags hung from every government building. The news channels showed the same images over and over: burning cities, dead children, and the cold mirror faces of the aliens, who had destroyed humanity's greatest colony. Admiral Kwon Jinwoo sat in the emergency meeting of the United Earth Defense Council. Around the table were the most powerful people on Earth: presidents, generals, scientists, and corporate leaders. But none of them had answers for what humanity should do next. "The aliens have taken 12 more human colonies," reported General Yang Soo-jin. "Each time they follow the same pattern: demand surrender, then kill everyone when we refuse. They don't take prisoners. They don't want our resources. They just want us dead." Director Shin Mina from the Strategic Research Division stood to address the council. "We've analyzed all the data from New Seoul. The Vorthak are technologically superior in every way. Their ships are faster, their weapons are stronger, and their defenses are better than anything we have." Admiral Kwon looked around the table at the faces of Earth's leaders. He could see fear in their eyes, but also something else, something darker. "Then we need to become better," he said quietly. "We need to learn everything we can about these aliens and find ways to hurt them." In a refugee camp outside Geneva, 16-year-old Kim Tae-ho trained with other young survivors. The boy who had dreamed of being a pilot was now learning to be a soldier. His childhood had ended in the fires of New Seoul, replaced by cold determination. Instructor. Baek Jong-soo was a former Special Forces officer who had volunteered to train the refugee children. He saw something in Taeho that reminded him of himself at that age. "Why do you want to fight?" Baek asked during a break in training. "Because they killed my father," Taeho answered, "and my friends, and my teacher, and everyone I cared about." Revenge can make you strong, but it can also make you stupid. Good soldiers fight for something, not just against something. Taeho thought about this. "I want to fight so that no other children have to watch their world burn." Baek nodded. The boy was learning. Dr. Park Hyejin was no longer the curious scientist who had studied alien plants. The attack on New Seoul had changed her just as much as it had changed Taeho. Now she worked in a secret laboratory deep underground, developing weapons that could kill Vorthak. Her assistant was Choi Minji, the little girl who had hidden in the closet while her world died. Minji was only 10, but she had seen things that would give adults nightmares. She worked with quiet focus, helping Park analyze samples of Vorthak technology that had been recovered from the attack. "The crystal structure of their bodies is fascinating," Park explained to her team. "It's almost like they're living computers, but that might also be their weakness." Dr. An Dongwook, the weapons physicist, leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "Computer systems can be hacked. They can be infected with viruses. If we can find the right frequency or the right chemical compound, we might be able to disrupt their neural networks." In another part of the research facility, Colonel Bae Sun-kyu was training a new kind of soldier. These were not ordinary troops. They were specialists trained specifically to fight aliens. They studied Vorthak tactics, practiced with captured alien weapons, and learned to think like their enemies. "The aliens are not invincible," Bae told his troops. "They're just different. They have advantages, but they also have weaknesses. Our job is to find those weaknesses and use them." Intelligence Officer Lim Kyung-min had spent months traveling to neutral alien worlds, gathering information about the Vorthak Empire. What he learned was terrifying. "They've been doing this for thousands of years," he reported to Admiral Kwan. "Species after species, wiped out completely. The crystal singers, the gas dwellers, the hive minds of Centauri, all gone. The Vorthak see themselves as cleaners, purifying the galaxy of inferior life." "How many species have they destroyed?" Kwan asked. "At least 47 that we know of. Maybe more. Some alien races won't even speak their name out loud. They're that afraid." But Lim had also learned something important. There's one thing that makes humans different from all the other species the Vorthak have destroyed. We adapt faster than anyone else. Other species try to fight the Vorthak using the same methods they've always used. Humans change. The research teams worked day and night, driven by grief and anger. They took apart every piece of Vorthak technology they could find. They studied the energy signatures of alien weapons. They analyzed the chemical composition of the black crystal that made up Vorthak ships and bodies. Dr. Park made the first breakthrough. Working with samples that Minji had helped her collect, she discovered that Vorthak neural tissue was vulnerable to a specific type of electromagnetic pulse. "It's like their brains are radio receivers," she explained to the research team. "If we can broadcast on the right frequency, we can scramble their thoughts or even shut down their nervous systems." Dr. An took this discovery and began developing weapons based on it. The first prototypes were crude, but they worked. In test after test, electromagnetic pulse weapons disabled captured Vorthak equipment. Meanwhile, Colonel Bae's special forces practiced assault tactics in mock-ups of Vorthak ships. They learned to move through the crystalline corridors and fight in the low-gravity environments that the aliens preferred. Taeho excelled in the training. At 16, he was already as skilled as soldiers twice his age. He had a natural talent for piloting and weapons, but more importantly, he had the cold focus that came from watching his world die. "The boy is ready for advanced training," Bayek reported to Admiral Kwan. "He could be leading missions within a year." Kwan studied Taeho's file. The admiral had lost his own family in the attacks on the outer colonies. He understood the young man's anger. "Send him to the pilot academy. We're going to need every skilled pilot we can get." The months passed quickly. Earth's industrial capacity, was completely focused on the war effort. Factories that had once made consumer goods now produced weapons and warships. Scientists who had studied medicine or agriculture now worked on ways to kill aliens. The first new human warships began rolling out of the shipyards. They incorporated everything humanity had learned about Vorthak technology. The ships were faster and more maneuverable than anything humans had built before. They carried the new electromagnetic pulse weapons and were protected by shields that could deflect energy beams. Captain Song Yeji, one of the few survivors from Captain Lee's crew, was given command of the first new ship. The HSS Retribution was sleek and deadly, designed specifically for fighting Vorthak vessels. "It's beautiful," Admiral Kwan said as he toured the ship. "Our engineers have done amazing work." "It's more than beautiful," Song replied. "It's angry. This ship wants to hurt the aliens as much as we do." But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Minji, now 11 years old, was helping Dr. Park analyze Vorthak communication patterns when she noticed something the adults had missed. "The patterns repeat," she said quietly. "Every message has the same structure at the beginning and end, like they're saying prayers or something." Park looked at the data again. The girl was right. Hidden in the alien communications were what appeared to be ritual phrases, religious formulas. "They're not just warriors," Park realized. "They're fanatics. They really believe they're doing something holy by killing other species." This discovery led to a new understanding of Vorthak psychology. They were not just conquerors seeking resources or territory. They were religious zealots who saw the destruction of other life forms as their sacred duty. "That makes them more dangerous," Admiral Kwan said when he heard the news. "But it also makes them predictable. Fanatics follow patterns. If we can understand their patterns, we can defeat them." Director Shin authorized the creation of Project Nemesis, a top-secret program that combined all of humanity's anti-Vorthak research into a single coordinated effort. The project had 3 goals: develop superior weapons, train elite soldiers, and find a way to strike back at the alien empire. Taiho graduated from pilot training at the top of his class. He was assigned to the experimental fighter program, testing new ships that incorporated captured alien technology. His call sign was New Soul, and he wore it proudly. Dr. Park's Biological Warfare Division had grown from a small team to a major research facility. Working with Minji and dozens of other scientists, she was developing a virus that specifically targeted Vorthak neural tissue. "It's elegant," she explained to Admiral Kwan. "The virus uses their own neural networks against them. It spreads from one alien to another through their communication systems." Colonel Bay's Special Forces had become the most elite military unit in human history. They could operate in any environment, use any weapon, and adapt to any situation. They called themselves the Retribution Corps. As the second year after New Soul began, humanity was ready for its first real test against the Vorthak. Intelligence reports indicated that a small alien fleet was approaching the Rigel system, where humanity had a mining colony. Admiral Kwan made the decision that would change the course of the war. "We're not going to evacuate Rigel," he announced to his staff. "We're going to fight." General Yang was concerned. "Sir, we've never tested our new weapons in real combat. If we fail, then we learn from our M." 4 years had passed since New Soul burned. The frightened refugees who had fled the dying colony were gone, replaced by something harder and more dangerous. Humanity had transformed itself into a weapon designed for one purpose: the complete destruction of the Vorthak Empire. Fleet Admiral Oh Sungjin stood on the bridge of the HSS Vengeance, flagship of humanity's new battle fleet. The ship was massive, almost as large as the Vorthak vessels that had destroyed the colonies. But where the alien ships were made of black crystal, human ships were built from captured Vorthak technology combined with Earth's industrial might. "Status. Report," Oh commanded as his ship moved through hyperspace toward the Vorthak forward base at Kepler Station. "All ships reporting ready, Admiral," replied Captain Cho Yun-hai from the HSS Retribution. "The new plasma cannons are charged, and the quantum torpedoes are armed." Oh nodded with satisfaction. These were not the desperate defenders who had died at New Soul. These were hunters, and they were closing in on their prey. In the fighter bay, Captain Tae-ho Kim performed final checks on his experimental fighter. The ship was called New Souls, Wrath, and it incorporated technology that no human had imagined just 5 years ago. The fighter could phase in and out of normal space, making it nearly impossible for enemies to target. Tae-ho was 20 now, no longer the frightened boy who had watched his world die. His face was hard, and his eyes were cold. He wore the uniform of the Retribution Corps with quiet pride. On his chest was a patch showing the burning skyline of New Seoul. "Squadron leaders, report status," Tae-ho ordered over the radio. "Vengeance. Squadron ready," came the reply from Lieutenant Park Soo-min, another New Seoul survivor. "Honor Squadron ready," reported Lieutenant Yoo Jae-won. "Justice Squadron ready," said Lieutenant Kang Moon-hee. Each squadron was made up of survivors from different colonies that the Vorthak had destroyed. They had all lost family and friends to the aliens. They all carried the same cold anger that had forged them into perfect weapons. In the research section of the fleet, Director Park Hye-jin worked with her team to prepare the final version of their biological weapon. The virus had been tested and refined over years of careful development. It was now ready for large-scale deployment. Choi Minji, now 14, assisted with the final preparations. The quiet girl had grown into a brilliant young scientist, but her eyes held the same cold focus as the fighters. She had never forgotten the sound of Dr. Park's screams as the aliens killed her. "The delivery systems are ready," Minji reported. "Once we breach their hull, the virus will spread through their ship's atmosphere within minutes." Director Park nodded. She had spent 4 years developing this weapon, and it was perfect. The virus specifically targeted Vorthak neural tissue, causing paralysis and death within hours, but it was completely harmless to humans and other known species. "Remember," Park told her team, "we're not just fighting for revenge anymore. We're fighting to make sure this never happens to anyone else." General Yoo Jae-won commanded the ground forces that would board disabled Vorthak ships. His soldiers were no longer human in any normal sense. They had been enhanced with captured alien technology, making them faster and stronger than any soldiers in history. "Our mission is simple," Yoo told his troops. "No survivors. We board their ships. We kill every alien we find and we take their technology. The only good Vorthak is a dead Vorthak." The soldiers nodded. They had all volunteered for the enhancement program, knowing that it would change them forever. They no longer felt fear or hesitation. They existed only to kill aliens. Intelligence Officer Lim Kyung-min had spent the past year infiltrating the outer edges of Vorthak space. The information he had gathered was invaluable. The aliens were supremely confident in their superiority. They had never faced an enemy that adapted as quickly as humans. "They're not expecting us," Lim reported to Admiral O. "According to their communications, they think we're just another primitive species that will be easy to exterminate. They have no idea what we've become." The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. Immediately, alarms began sounding on Vorthak ships throughout the system. The aliens had been monitoring human communication, but they had never seen ships like these before. Admiral O smiled as he watched the alien fleet scramble to respond. "All ships, commence attack. Show them what happens when you kill human children." The battle began with a coordinated strike that the Vorthak could not have imagined. Human ships appeared and disappeared using quantum phase technology. Plasma cannons tore through alien shields like they were paper. Quantum torpedoes detonated inside Vorthak hulls, causing massive explosions. Tae-ho led his fighter squadron through the alien formation, his ship flickering in and out of normal space. The Vorthak had never faced an enemy that could simply vanish and reappear behind them. "Vengeance leader to all squadrons," Tae-ho called over the radio. "Remember New Seoul. Remember our families. Make them pay." The fighters swarmed over the alien ships like angry wasps. Their weapons had been specifically designed to penetrate Vorthak crystal armor. Each shot was precisely targeted at the most vulnerable points. Lieutenant Park Soo-min's fighter phased directly through a Vorthak cruiser's hull and fired quantum charges inside the ship. The cruiser exploded from within, its crystal structure shattering like glass. "That's for my little sister," Park said quietly as she moved on to the next target. Captain Cho Yun-hai's ship faced off against the largest Vorthak vessel, a massive dreadnought that had probably destroyed dozens of colonies. The alien ship fired its energy beams, but the human ship's shields absorbed the attack without difficulty. "Return fire," Cho ordered. "Full power to the plasma cannons." The human weapons struck the alien ship with devastating force. The Vorthak vessel's hull began to crack and melt. For the first time in their history, the aliens found themselves facing an enemy with superior firepower. As the alien shields collapsed, Director Park's team launched their biological weapon. Delivery pods phased through the damaged hull and released the virus into the ship's atmosphere. Within minutes, the effects became visible. Vorthak warriors stumbled and fell as their neural systems shut down. The virus spread from alien to alien, carried by their own communication networks. "Biological weapon deployment successful," Minji reported. "The virus is spreading through their entire fleet." Admiral O watched with grim satisfaction as the Vorthak fleet began to collapse. Ships that had seemed invincible just minutes ago were now drifting helplessly in space, their crews dead or dying. "Deploy boarding parties," O ordered. "I want every piece of alien technology recovered." General Yu's enhanced soldiers boarded the disabled ships using quantum transport technology. They moved through the crystal corridors like ghosts, killing any aliens who were still alive and stripping the ships of useful equipment. The battle lasted less than 3 hours. When it was over, the entire Vorthak fleet had been destroyed or captured. Not a single alien had survived, but the humans were not finished. "Send a message to every Vorthak world," Admiral O ordered. "Tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity remembers New Sol, and we're coming for them." The message was broadcast on every alien communication frequency. It was short and simple. "You killed our children. Now we kill you. There will be no mercy. There will be no surrender. You will all die." Across Vorthak space, alien commanders received the human message with shock and disbelief. How could the primitive species they had so easily destroyed 4 years ago have become so powerful? Supreme Shard Kethvar, the Vorthak leader who had overseen the destruction of New Sol, called an emergency meeting of the High Command. The crystal being that had once seemed so confident now radiated uncertainty. "The humans have somehow acquired our technology," one of his advisors reported. "Their ships are using quantum phase drives and plasma weapons. They have biological weapons that specifically target our neural structures." "How is this possible?" Kethvar demanded. "We are the superior species. We have purified the galaxy for millennia. These vermin cannot have surpassed us." "Perhaps, Supreme Shard. We underestimated their adaptability. Other species we have cleansed tried to fight us using their traditional methods. The humans have abandoned everything they once were and rebuilt themselves specifically to fight us." Kethvar considered this. It was true that other species had been predictable in their responses. They had tried to negotiate or fight using the same tactics that had failed before. But the humans were different. They had studied their enemies and transformed themselves into something new. "No matter," Kethvar finally decided. "We will mobilize the entire Imperial fleet. Billions of ships, trillions of warriors. No matter how clever these humans think they are, they cannot stand against the full might of the Vorthak Empire." But even as he spoke, Kethvar felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. Back in human space, the victory at Kepler had transformed the war. No longer were humans the desperate defenders fleeing from alien attacks. They had proven that the Vorthak could be defeated. Admiral O was promoted to Supreme Commander of all human forces. His first order was to begin construction of a massive fleet that would carry the war into the heart of Vorthak space. "We're not going to wait for them to attack us again," he announced too. The war had moved beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen before. It was no longer a conflict between two species fighting for territory or resources. It had become something darker and more absolute. Humanity had decided that the Vorthak would cease to exist, and they were making that decision a reality with methodical precision. Admiral Jang Hyunwoo commanded the largest fleet in human history as it approached Vorth Prime, the alien homeworld. 2,000 ships moved in perfect formation through the darkness of space, each one designed for a single purpose: the complete destruction of an entire species. On the bridge of the HSS Apocalypse, Yang studied the tactical displays showing the alien world. Vorth Prime was beautiful in its own way, covered in crystal cities that caught and reflected the light of its twin suns. 12 billion Vorthak lived on the planet below, going about their daily lives with no idea that their extinction was only hours away. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said Captain Sunborum from the Stealth Division. Her ships had already seeded Dr. Park's biological weapon into the planet's atmosphere using invisible drones. The virus was designed to remain dormant until activated by a specific signal. "Ground assault teams ready," reported Colonel Park Chang-min, whose enhanced soldiers waited in the boarding craft like death itself given form. "Fighter squadrons ready," came the voice of Admiral Taeho Kim, the young man who had grown from a frightened boy into humanity's most feared pilot. Jang nodded, slowly. Everything was in position. The aliens who had murdered children on New Sol were about to learn what real terror felt like. "Begin the attack," he ordered quietly. "Show them no mercy. Take no prisoners. Leave nothing alive." Dr. Park Hyojin sat in her laboratory aboard the fleet command ship, monitoring the biological weapon as it spread through Vorth Prime's atmosphere. The virus had been perfected over years of careful development. It was elegant in its simplicity and absolute in its lethality. Beside her, Choi Minji, now 16, watched the readings with cold satisfaction. The girl who had once hidden in a closet while her world burned had become one of humanity's most brilliant weapons developers. "Neural cascade beginning," Minji reported. "The virus is targeting their communication networks. Within 6 hours, every Vorthak on the planet will be paralyzed." "Good," Park said quietly. "But paralysis is just the beginning. After 12 hours, their nervous systems will completely shut down. After 24 hours, they will all be dead." The virus was spreading faster than the aliens could comprehend. Vorthak civilians in the crystal cities began stumbling and falling as their neural implants, designed to connect them to their species' collective consciousness, became conduits for death instead of communication. In the Planetary Defense Center, Vorthak military commanders watched in horror as their people collapsed in the streets. They tried to send messages to their fleet, but their own communication systems were carrying the human virus from one alien to another. "The infection is spreading through our neural networks," reported a panicked technician. "Every time we try to communicate, we spread it further." The defense commander, a massive Vorthak called Primary Crystal Zethvor, realized what was happening. "The humans have turned our greatest strength against us. Our unity has become our weakness." Admiral Taeho led his fighter squadrons down through the planet's atmosphere, past the falling crystal towers and the bodies of aliens dying in the streets. His target was the Planetary Command Center, where the surviving Vorthak leaders were trying to coordinate a defense. Taeho's fighter, New Sol's Wrath, had been upgraded with the latest human technology. It could phase through solid matter and deliver destruction with surgical precision. He flew through the crystal walls of the command center as if they were empty air. Inside the building, he found Primary Crystal Zethvor and a small group of surviving officers. The aliens turned their mirror-smooth faces toward him, and Taeho could see his own reflection in their crystalline surfaces. "You," Zethvor said in broken human language, "you are the species we cleansed from New Sol. You should be extinct." Taeho's voice was completely calm. "We were children, playing in parks, learning in schools. You killed them all." "It was necessary," the alien replied. "Lesser species contaminate the cosmic order. Purification was required." Taeho raised his weapon. "And now purification is what you get." The energy beam cut through the alien commander, shattering his crystal body into 1,000 pieces. Taeho turned to the other officers and methodically killed each one, his face showing no emotion at all. Across the planet, Colonel Park Chang-min's enhanced soldiers moved through the dying cities like a plague of destruction. They had been given simple orders: kill everything that moves. Destroy everything that could preserve Vorthak culture or knowledge. Specialist Kang Moon-hee led a demolition team through the Great Archive, where the Vorthak kept the historical records of their empire. The crystal data storage systems contained the accumulated knowledge of thousands of years. "Burn it all," Moon-hee ordered. "Every record, every file, every piece of their history. I want them erased from the universe." Her team moved systematically through the archive, destroying everything they found. Ancient records of Vorthak philosophy, art, and science were reduced to melted crystal and ash. The aliens had not just lost their lives, they were losing their entire identity as a species. In the genetic repositories where the Vorthak stored samples for reproduction, human soldiers ensured that no alien could ever be born again. The crystalline eggs that would have become the next generation were smashed and burned. Dr. Park's virus continued its methodical work throughout the planet. The 12 billion inhabitants of Vorth Prime fell one by one as their neural systems collapsed. In the crystal hospitals, alien doctors tried desperately to find a cure, but the virus had been designed too well. It used the Vorthak's own biology against them. As the hours passed, the beautiful crystal cities became graveyards. The towers that had once gleamed in the sunlight now stood empty and silent. The streets were filled with the bodies of a dying race. Captain Sunborum's stealth ships moved through the space around Vorth Prime, hunting down any aliens trying to escape. No evacuation ship was allowed to leave. No message was permitted to reach other Vorthak worlds. The extinction of the homeworld would be complete and total. Escape pod detected, reported one of Sun's pilots. Single Vorthak aboard. Destroy it, Sun ordered without hesitation. No survivors, no exceptions. The alien escape pod was vaporized by a plasma cannon. Inside had been a young Vorthak, barely more than a child by their species standards. But humanity no longer distinguished between Vorthak adults and children. They were all equally guilty of the crime committed at New Sol. Admiral Jang received reports from around the planet as the extermination continued. Every major city was now silent. Every military base had been destroyed. Every cultural site had been reduced to rubble. Population status? He asked his tactical officer. 11.7 billion confirmed dead, came the reply. Remaining, population dropping rapidly as the virus completes its work. Estimated time to complete extinction? 6 hours, Admiral. Jang nodded with cold satisfaction. The Vorthak homeworld would be completely empty by dawn. 12 billion aliens would be dead, and their entire civilization would be erased from history. But Admiral Tejo was not finished. His squadron had located the Vorthak's primary reproduction facility, where the species' future generations were being prepared. Crystal eggs filled vast chambers, each one containing a potential alien life. Target confirmed, Tejo reported, preparing to destroy the Vorthak breeding facility. Wait, came a transmission from one of his pilots. Sir, they're children. Unborn children. Tejo's voice was ice cold. They murdered our children, every single one of them. Now we return the favor. The quantum bombs detonated throughout the breeding facility. Millions of crystal eggs were destroyed in moments, each one representing a Vorthak that would never be born. The aliens' future died with their present. As the last Vorthak on the planet breathed his final breath, human forces began the systematic destruction of everything the aliens had built. Crystal cities were reduced to powder, historical monuments were erased, even the orbital stations around the planet were demolished. Dr. Park monitored the final phase of the biological weapons work. Complete neural shutdown achieved across all target populations, she reported. No life signs detected. Minji checked her readings one more time. Confirmed. The planet is dead. Admiral Jang looked out at the world below. Where once a thriving civilization had lived and worked and dreamed, now there was only silence. Vorth Prime had become a tomb containing 12 billion corpses. Send a message to the remaining Vorthak worlds, Jang ordered. Tell them what happened, here. Tell them that this is just the beginning. The message was broadcast across alien space on every frequency. It contained footage of the dying cities, the empty streets, and the silent crystal towers. The message was simple. This is what happens to species that kill human children. You are next. Throughout Vorthak space, alien colonies received the transmission with absolute terror. Their mighty homeworld, the center of their empire for thousands of years, had been exterminated in a single day. The humans had not just defeated them, they had erased them. But the war was over. Not because anyone had surrendered, but because there was no one left to surrender. The Vorthak Empire, which had dominated the galaxy for thousands of years, had ceased to exist, Every world, every ship, every trace of their civilization had been systematically erased by humanity's methodical campaign of extinction. Historian Dr. Ryu Seongjae stood in the archives of Earth's War Memorial, documenting the final statistics of humanity's revenge. The numbers were staggering even to him, and he had spent months compiling them. Total Vorthak casualties, 847,412,000,000, he dictated to his recording device. Worlds sterilized, 1,247. Orbital habitats destroyed, 36,891. Duration of extermination campaign, 18 months, 4 days. He paused and looked out the window at the peaceful Earth sky. Children were playing in the park below, laughing and running in the sunlight. They had no idea that their species had just committed the largest act of genocide in galactic history. Admiral Quan Jinwoo, now elderly and tired, stood before the Galactic Council on the neutral world of Centauri Station. Representatives from dozens of alien species sat in the Great Chamber, their various forms creating a bizarre collection of shapes and colors. But they all shared one thing: absolute terror of the humans who had just erased an entire species from existence. The Vorthak Empire is gone, Quan announced simply. Every world, every ship, every individual member of their species has been eliminated. There are no survivors. The chamber was completely silent. Some of the alien representatives were trembling. Others seemed unable to process what they had just heard. "You must understand," Quan continued, his voice calm and reasonable. "Humanity takes the murder of children very seriously. The Vorthak chose to target our young. They chose to broadcast the executions as entertainment. They made a fundamental error in judgment about what kind of species they were dealing with. A representative from the Centauri Collective, a floating jellyfish-like creature, finally found its voice. But 800 billion individuals, an entire species. How could you?" "Easily," Quan replied. "Once we decided it was necessary, it became simply a matter of logistics and technology. We are very good at both." The alien fell silent again. Around the chamber, other species representatives made notes in their various languages. The message was clear. Humanity was not to be threatened. Admiral Kim Taiho, now 32 years old, commanded the memorial fleet that patrolled the empty space where the Vorthak Empire had once existed. His flagship, New Soul Remembers, was one of 50 vessels that ensured no trace of the alien species could survive. Each ship in the memorial fleet carried soil from New Soul in special containers. They also carried recordings of the children who had died there, their voices, their laughter, their dreams for the future. The fleet was a moving monument to the price of threatening human children. "Sir," reported Captain Lee Ji-won from the bridge of his patrol ship, "we've detected some kind of automated beacon in the asteroid field of the former Zeta Vorthak system." Taeho's response was immediate. "Destroy it. Nothing of their culture survives. That was the agreement." The beacon was vaporized by plasma fire within minutes. It had been broadcasting some kind of Vorthak poetry or religious text. Now it was silent forever, like the rest of their species. Dr. Park Hye-jin had retired from active weapons development, but she still maintained a research station where she studied the psychological effects of total war on human society. Her final report was classified at the highest levels, but its conclusions were disturbing. "We have proven beyond doubt that humans are capable of becoming the galaxy's apex predator when sufficiently motivated," she wrote. "The transformation from peaceful colonists to systematic exterminators took less than 5 years. This adaptability is both our greatest strength and our most terrifying characteristic." Choi Minji, now 20 years old, had become one of Earth's leading xenobiologists. But her research had a darker purpose than her childhood dreams of exploration. She studied alien species to identify their weaknesses, just in case humanity ever needed to eliminate another threat. "The key is understanding their biology completely before you act," she explained to her students. "The Vorthak made the mistake of revealing their neural network structure during their attacks. We used that knowledge to create a virus that turned their greatest strength into their fatal weakness." Her students took careful notes. They were being trained not just as scientists, but as potential weapons developers. Humanity would never again be caught unprepared by an alien threat. In the diplomatic section of Earth's government, Ambassador Lee Soo-young met with representatives from various alien species. They came with trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and scientific cooperation proposals, but they also came with fear in their eyes. Your species has become somewhat intimidating to the galactic community, admitted Ambassador Vex High of the Silicon Confederacy. The complete elimination of the Vorthak has caused considerable concern among other civilizations. Lee smiled politely. We understand your concerns, Ambassador, but I want to assure you that humanity has no aggressive intentions toward peaceful species. We only respond to direct threats against our people, particularly our children. And if such a threat were to emerge again? Lee's smile never wavered, but her eyes grew cold. Then we would respond appropriately. We have become very good at responding appropriately. The meeting ended with a new trade agreement, but also with a clear understanding. Humanity was willing to be peaceful, but they were also prepared to be absolutely devastating if provoked. Colonel Park Chang-min, who had led the ground forces during the Vorthak extermination, now commanded humanity's Special Threats Division. His soldiers were no longer entirely human, enhanced with alien technology and trained to fight any conceivable enemy. The galaxy is watching us, he told his troops during their weekly briefing. Some species see us as heroes who eliminated a genocidal empire. Others see us as monsters who are capable of destroying entire civilizations. Both perspectives are correct. His soldiers nodded. They had volunteered to become weapons, and they understood their role in humanity's new position in the galaxy. Our job is to make sure that no species ever again makes the mistake of targeting human civilians. We are the deterrent. We are the reminder of what happens when someone hurts our children. Admiral Jang Hyun-woo, the architect of the Vorthak, Homeworld's destruction, had become something of a legend among human military forces. Younger officers studied his campaigns and tactics, learning how to wage total war against an entire species. But Jang himself was troubled by what humanity had become. In his private moments, he sometimes wondered if they had gone too far. Then he would remember the images of children dying on New Sol, and his doubts would disappear. We did what was necessary, he told his aide one evening as they watched the sun set from his office window. The Vorthak taught us a valuable lesson about the galaxy. There are predators out there who see kindness as weakness. We made sure the galaxy learned a different lesson, that humanity is not prey. Intelligence Officer Lim Kyung-min continued to monitor alien communications throughout the galaxy. What he found was both satisfying and disturbing. Humanity had become the subject of myths and legends among other species. They call us the children's guardians in some languages, he reported to Admiral Kwan. Other species refer to us as the Silent Death or the World Enders. The name varies, but the message is consistent. Don't hurt humans, especially human children. And what about their actual intentions toward us? Kwan asked. Universal respect mixed with fear. Several species have implemented specific protocols to avoid any actions that could be interpreted as threatening to human civilians. They're being very careful. On New Sol's Memorial World, which had been rebuilt as a monument to the dead, children played in the same parks where their predecessors had been murdered. The new colony was beautiful and peaceful, but it was also heavily defended by weapons that could sterilize a planet. Governor Han Ji-yeon, a survivor of the original attack, watched the children play and thought about the price of their safety. The galaxy was quiet now. No species dared to threaten humanity. But that peace had cost 800 billion lives. Was it worth it? Asked her aide, a young woman who had grown up hearing stories about the Vorthak War. Han considered the question carefully. Ask me again when these children are grown up and have children of their own, she said finally. If they live their entire lives without anyone trying to hurt them because they're human, then yes, it was worth it. In the depths of space, automatic monitoring stations detected something that made humanity's military leaders take notice. A new signal from the far edge of the galaxy, clearly artificial and clearly non-human. Admiral Taiho received the report, while his memorial fleet was conducting routine patrols. The signal patterns were unlike anything in their databases. It might be a new species making contact, or it might be something else entirely. Classify this as a potential threat until proven otherwise, Taiho ordered. Alert all fleet commanders. Prepare full species assessment protocols. If this new contact proved hostile, if they made the mistake,